Good evening and welcome to the New Ulm City Council President Primary Candidate Forum. My name is Harriet Mason. I'm a member of the St. Peter League of Women Voters and will be serving as your moderator tonight. The candidates tonight will answer questions from the audience and the League of Women Voters pursuant to the nonpartisan, unbiased, impartial format that has been established by the League of Women Voters of Minnesota. The purpose of this forum is to facilitate an opportunity to hear the candidates discuss the issues of importance to the public in this election. Tonight, the audience is watching and listening remotely. We are broadcasting live on KNUJ Radio, New Ulm Community Access Television, and Facebook Live. Audience members may submit questions via an email and telephone. We are receiving emails at lwvnewlm@lwvmn.org. We are taking calls at 507-276-6140 and 507-766-9581. I will repeat this contact information when I conclude the introduction and again periodically during the forum. The phone numbers and email address are also posted on the screen. The League of Women Voters does screen all questions. We will not ask questions that are of personal nature unrelated to the elected position, unclear, hostile, or that are submitted for the purpose of making a statement rather than gaining information. We may rephrase, combine, or eliminate questions to avoid duplication. If you have questions that are not presented or you feel the issue was not adequately addressed, please contact the candidates directly. Tonight we have 3 candidates running for the primary election of the New Ulm City Council President: Ms. Betker, Mr. Mack, and Mr. Schmidt. We look forward to a respectful learning experience. The candidates are expected to honor a time limit. Each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes to introduce themselves, 2 minutes to respond to each question, and 2 minutes for a closing statement. Each candidate has the opportunity for a 1-minute rebuttal to 2 questions that they choose. I will alternate the order of response. Just a reminder again that you may submit questions to lwvnewlm@lwvmn.org or phone 507-276-6140 or 507-766-9581. Now it's time for the candidates to give their opening statement. We will start with Ms. Betker, followed by Mr. Mack, and then Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum and appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts on issues impacting our community. I chose to run for councilor at large because I feel our community can benefit from a fresh perspective. I will listen and respond to the issues important to our citizens and business owners. New Ulm is at an important juncture, and we have the ability to seize opportunity and do things right when it comes to completing the Renew projects, attracting businesses to our downtown sector, addressing parking, and reiterating our need to keep the Highway 14 project moving forward by ensuring it does not get held up at the state level. My background is in business management, finance, and hospitality. I believe this positions me well to handle the responsibilities of councilor at large. Over the past several years, I've been active and have led several boards and committees, including that for the Grand Center for Arts and Culture and the Willkomen Committee on the New Ulm Chamber of Commerce. I understand the challenges on working on large projects and will approach conflicts with an open mind. I currently serve as the director of New Ulm Turner Hall and serve on the board of directors for the New Ulm Chamber of Commerce and the Women's Forum. I've been a resident of New Ulm since 2009. I am married to Jeff Betker and have 2 children, Jackson and Jordan, who attend public schools in New Ulm. In my free time, I enjoy swimming and being active in the community.
Mr. Mack.
I am Larry Mack, New Ulm's Ward 4 Councilor. I am running for Councilor at Large. I've served on City Council since 2014. I am the current Chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the past 7 years, Vice Chair of the Reinvest New Ulm Oversight Committee for the past 5 years. I'm a sixth-generation New Ulm native, and I've worked as a tool and die maker at 3M here in New Ulm for the past 21 years. During my time in the council, I've learned about city operations, fiscal responsibilities, what our citizens value, and how to solve problems in resourceful ways. I've learned to listen carefully and respectfully to people on all sides of an issue. I've learned to stay open-minded and be flexible when situations change. As your counselor at large, I would use these skills to make well-informed decisions for New Ulm that put the health and well-being of our community first. My priorities would be retaining and adding businesses, revitalizing downtown to create a more usable gathering space for everyone, and growing the tax base. I would also like to explore the opportunities for families for daycare and complete the Renew projects.
Thank you. Mr. Schmitz.
My name is Charles Schmitz. I've been on the city council for the past 12 years as the council president. I grew up in Fairfax, which is about 25 miles from here. I started with the city back in 1967 in the public utilities. I retired from there in 2008. At that time, I decided to run for the council president position, which I was elected to. The past 12 years have been very interesting and very exciting. I've enjoyed them all. I serve on the Fire Department Relief Association, Region 9 of Mankato, New Ulm Police Department, what do you call it, up at the Joint Sheriff's Police Department, and like I say, it's been very interesting, and I've enjoyed all the years. And I married to my wife, Gail, and have 7 grandchildren, and we're doing just great. Thank you.
Thank you for your opening remarks. Now it's time to begin the questions. I will read the questions and give you the order in which you may reply. If you need the questions or the response order repeated, just let me know. The first 2 questions were drafted by the League of Women Voters New Ulm and provided to the candidates in advance. The first candidate is Mr. Mack, followed by Ms. Betker, and finally Mr. Schmidt. The question is, COVID-19 poses a substantial threat to our communities and requires leadership at every level of government. Describe your plans for leading the city of New Ulm forward through this crisis. Mr. Mack.
Would like to continue to work with Brown County Public Health officials to ensure we have the most up-to-date information. Follow the guidelines put forth by the governor and his health commission. Listen to the community and its concerns and vote accordingly. Remain flexible and open-minded as the pandemic situation changes. Work closely with retail, bars, restaurants, and other businesses to find creative ways for them to succeed while following state guidelines. Continue to provide financial support such as loans or grant opportunities for businesses that need it. And keep New Ulm healthy as our top priority at this time, as we are a manufacturing community that provides world-class products and services around the world.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Betker.
Thank you. We're finding ourselves in unprecedented times. Families, businesses, and churches have all been impacted directly and indirectly from coronavirus. As a council, our role is to support the efforts of the city that make sense for our community. With state and federal funds available for relief, it's important that we're competing for these dollars and spending them wisely. Our community is counting on our city leadership to source the solutions and our counselors to progress the solutions.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Schmidt.
Yeah, I believe that being on the city council for the last year or so since this virus thing got going, or since March actually, that the city has taken several steps to help out the businesses and stuff. Through the EDA, we have given out grants and loans, or not loans, but just grants to several of the small businesses in the tone of about $250,000, which is unique for our city, and it's something that we needed to do, and we've done. We've been fortunate, based on information last night, that there's a possibility that we're going to get reimbursed for that from the state, which is going to be great. So that'll help us out some more. So we actually turned around and did the right thing by helping out the businesses. I'm sure they could still use more because the economy is not back to where it needs to be. But the other thing is I just want to point out that a lot of people in New Ulm, I shouldn't say a lot, but maybe some people, whatever, think that we're on an island or we live in a bubble, but we really aren't, you know. In New Ulm, we have 5,700 people that travel out of town or I should say not out, but travel into New Ulm to work. We have 2,500 people that leave New Ulm to work. So all these people are going out someplace in the public, working for manufacturing to whatever it might be. So if there's any chance of catching the virus, the opportunities are always there. We're fortunate that we have the situation that we do right now. I know it's doubled over the last few weeks, but yet we're still low in numbers. So I guess where I'm coming from is I really want to see New Ulm move forward. I don't want to see us sitting back and relaxing or whatever. We need to get the businesses up and running, and we at the city have to see that it happens because we need all these businesses in this community. So I guess that's my game.
Thank you. We will move on to the second question, and Mr. Schmitz, you will be first, followed by Mr. Mack and then Ms. Betker. The question is, recent artwork at the city's Art Wall Park disturbed many members of our community who called the city government's response. How do you feel the city and the city departments should respond to these incidents? Mr. Schmitz.
I guess I feel that the response should be quiet, private, however you want to say it. I don't think we should give the attention to the people that are doing it. They go out down there and they paint something, graffiti on there or whatever it might happen to be, or whether it's racist or whatever it might be. The first thing we do is we go out and we notify the press and everybody else, and we spread this all over so they get the attention. And only thing that serves is like it did in the last time. We paint over it and they come back and do it again. I think if we would just, as a department head, just go down there with some paint, send an employee down, paint, keep it quiet, and don't say nothing. If they don't get the attention, there was no advantage for them to do it. So I guess that's where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Mr. Mack?
Well, so far, city staff has painted over the offending words and symbols as necessary. One possibility might be to have a community watch volunteers who keep an eye on the location and report regularly to law enforcement. Another possibility would be to put signage and/or trail cameras in place and see if we can catch the individual or individuals. It's very important to address any misuse of the art wall quickly to send a strong message that we take pride in our community. Hate speech and symbols and racism will not be tolerated in our community.
Thank you. Ms.
Thank you. I had a chance to go down and visit the art wall on Monday and took a good look around at everything. I took some pictures of the trail. I took some pictures of all sides of the building. And it looks like the city has already needed to respond several times to reports of inappropriate content on those walls. What I think the city could do would be to provide more clarity on using the space. The signage now is rather unclear. Do we want the sidewalks used? I see them being painted over. So is that something that we can address through just some simple signage? When I approached the art wall, the access road was closed. So do we want that open so that it can be better patrolled, or do we want it closed as a way of trying to prohibit artists and others from coming to view or use the art wall? Can we place more garbage receptacles around? I mean, it's a great space, but there was one garbage can that was overflowing. I think it's great that artists have a public space to create artwork. However, offensive content does not have a place in our community. I do agree with Charlie, in times of social media, though, privacy can be difficult. While it would be ideal to not give them the attention, it's something that's easy to do. If we are going to have an art wall that's been experiencing trouble, I'd like to see a plan from the city to monitor and address problematic issues as they occur.
Thank you. Okay, now I would just remind everybody that's listening that you may submit questions. Once again, you may submit questions to the lwvnewlm@lwvmn.org. You may also call 507-276-6140 or 507-766-9581. We will move on to the third question here. And Ms. Betker, you're up, and then Mr. Schmitz and Mr. Mack. Now, this is the question. A couple of weeks ago, the New Ulm City Council okayed hosting this year's amateur state baseball tournament by a vote of 3-2. Even though the local health officials and members of the community advised against it. They were against it, concerned visitors might be negatively affected by the health of the residents. Ms. Betker, had you been on the council for a vote, would you have voted for it, and why? Mr. Mack and Mr. Schmitz, your question is, why did you vote the way you did, and would you change the vote today if you could? Ms. Betker, you're the first one.
Thank you. I know it's difficult because we as a community have been looking forward to hosting this event now for nearly half a decade. We've spent $1 million in renovations to Johnson Park. It's something that we know was going to be a great event for the community, but then COVID hit. And what that means to me is that everything has the potential to change. One of the things that I would have done as a council person is researched what other communities are doing for their large sporting events. We can't be the only one in the state that's planning to host an event of this size. I also would have really taken into consideration the phone calls, the emails, the discussions that the community had with counselors, and especially those of local health officials in the community. I would have voted no.
Okay, Mr. Schmitz.
All right. I was one that actually voted for it. And the reason I voted for it was because based on all the guidelines that was set up by the governor, the Baseball Association met every one of the guidelines. They were going to limit the number of people to 250. They presently are having ball games down there already. And the only difference it would have made is you're going to bring in an additional 250 people probably for each game. So in other words, 500 people for both parks. And I don't think that would have had any major impact based on the information that we had when this decision was made. At that time, we had 31 known cases in New Ulm. Today, we have around 60 or so. So things have changed between then and today. Would I vote different if I had a chance, which is probably going to be coming up this Friday? I guess I'm going to wait and see once what information is out there. But I do believe that we need to go forward. We have to keep this community going. To comment Andrea made, yes, Mankato is hosting the girls softball state tournament. And to my knowledge, that's going to take place in the next few weeks too. So we aren't the only community. If this baseball tournament doesn't take place in New Ulm, it will take place someplace within the state. And if they go by all the guidelines and everything, and these players are tested and everything, I really don't see a problem. But, you know, we're never guaranteed anything perfect. But I think for the community, it would have so many benefits, and that's why I supported it. And I'll be honest, right now, I still support it until I hear information leading that they aren't going to abide by the regulations or whatever. Of course, then I'll change my mind. But like I say, things have doubled since we heard it, so, thank you.
Mr. Mack?
I voted no for it. And the reason I voted no for it was from the outcry from the community at large that reached out and said, we have to take a serious look at this. New Ulm, baseball is baseball, but, we can play baseball another day and we don't have to worry about it. We are a manufacturing community and providing goods and services. And, and after talking to the public health director and our emergency management police chief, Dave Borkert, on the issue, I'm concerned about it spreading, and why bring more into our community when our numbers were low? And that's why I voted no for the tournament in New Ulm.
I got to use one of my rebuttals. Not really anything against what you said, Larry, but just a comment I'm going to make. You made the comment about based on the calls you had and stuff like that, and I realized that the wards get definitely more calls than I as the council president do, because I'll get a call where somebody will say, I don't know who my counselor was, I'm calling you. But so I know you guys get them. But my comment is I'm going to go back to 12 years ago when I got elected to the city council. I went to the newly elected officials conference and sat in there. And the comment they made to me at that time, and it stuck with me forever since, is if you're at a council meeting and that council chamber is full of people and they're all talking and telling you to do one thing, if you did that, took that as the reason for your decision, you did it for the wrong reason. What you have to do is look at what's best for the community. You can have everybody opposite of what you're thinking, but you got to realize what's best for the community. There's times on the city council where I voted for something that was actually against what I really thought I should be doing, but it was for the best. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mack?
I'm just going to rebuttal back at this, and I think, I would agree with Charlie on what he's stating there when you have an audience full of people, but I'm going to look at the better interests of the community's health at first with that decision.
Okay. Now we move on to another question. That was, yeah. Okay, now this
Gotta use 'em.
question, again, we'll start with Mr. Mack on this question, go to Ms. Betker, and then Mr. Schmitz. And again, this question will affect each of you slightly differently. Here's the question. Question is, please clarify, if Mr. Mack does not win the election for the city council president, does he continue in his current position? And if Mack does win, who fills that seat? And as it turns out, Mr. Mack is first up, and that's part of the grid. I didn't make that up.
So if the question was if I would win,
Well, it's if you win or if you don't win. You have to answer both ways.
if I win, the council as a whole, from my understanding, will appoint someone to fill my current term for the next 2 years for Ward 4. Yeah. Was there another?
Well,
What part did I?
if you don't win,
If I don't win, I'm going to be here as a counselor for the next 2 years to fill that term, and then I'll come back in 4 years and try it again.
Ms. Betker, do you have anything you'd like to say?
That is how I understand it as well. I don't know if there's any verbiage in our rules that say, if you're looking to move up and go to a higher office, that you would essentially vacate your seat if you lose. But as I understand it now, with a win, Mr. Mack would become council president. His seat would be vacated and appointed. And then if he loses, he would go back into the 4th Ward seat.
Mr. Schmitz, do you have something you'd like to say?
I think it's all been said, but anyway, what Larry did say is absolutely the way it is. The city council, if he is elected, then he would fill the seat. If he isn't elected, he goes back and still the city councilor. My comment is, and I'd like to make a point, I guess, or just ask a question. If Larry would win and become the city council president, at that time, the city council will be going out and looking for somebody to fill that position, taking volunteers. We've done it in the past and stuff like that. And I'm just going to make a comment here. I know Andrea is exactly in that ward. And my personal opinion would be is I always like to see people that are interested in being on the city council because those are the people you really want. So I would just hope that they would consider at that time asking her.
Thank you, Charlie.
Okay. We'll move on to the next question. And this question, Mr. Smits will be the first up, Mr. Mack and Ms. Betker. And this question comes from an audience member. As a small business owner in New Ulm, how will you work to keep the small businesses in New Ulm and not just through the COVID? I think the point of the question is in the long run, not just during this pandemic. Let's see, I think Mr. Smith, you're...
That's a good question. There's, so much the city council can do, but as the economic development in New Ulm, we do have people there. We have our assistant city manager, economic development person, who actually works with all the businesses, and that's a primary their function. But as the city council, we would be willing to do whatever we need to do. Financially, we're really limited, but with any help or whatever that we can supply or do, we'd gladly do it. But it's no different than what we did through the COVID, so thank you.
Mr. Mack?
For helping businesses in New Ulm, I think, retaining them, and I guess I would look at, first of all, if that business would at least notify the council or a councilor member that they might need some economic help. And if we could sit down with them, maybe structure with some loans or grant opportunities. Also maybe looking at a revitalization plan for them, maybe tax base for their property. If there are any incentives to try to retain them and work with our assistant city manager in charge of economic development and have them do a little one-on-one, or maybe there's some other coaching opportunities for them to help them with some marketing skills to help their business succeed for the future. And I'd just like to reach out to any of those businesses that we want you here and we think you're important and every one of you count. And if they're having tough times, reach out to your counselors.
Ms. Betker?
Hi, thank you. I think it's very important that we do what we can as a city to keep the small businesses in town. And the biggest piece of that is, as Charlie said, ensuring our economic development wheels are working together. We have several different groups in the community that are tasked with economic development, and I would love to see them come together and really get those wheels turning to get some momentum. We're beginning to see some change in the downtown as entrepreneurs do come in and take charge. I've learned about some revitalization loans that are available through the city at low interest cost, and I know the Chamber does a very good job of providing different seminars and things on business education training and remodeling loans, things like that. So making sure that the business owners understand how to use the resources that we already have available. We don't need to continue to keep trying to reinvent the wheel, but making sure that we are reaching out to other companies that might be interested in looking at New Ulm, making sure we are making those connections and that our economic development groups are working together.
Thank you. Okay, we're on to question 6. And question 6 says, do you support, who's in first? Oh, Ms. Betker, you're first. And then Mr. Schmidt and Mr. Mack. Do you support an ordinance which would require all city properties to be smoke-free?
Yes. I mean, the medical studies show that smoking is not healthy. It's not a good habit. Other cities already have imposed some much more restrictive ordinances as well. I would want to make sure that this would be supported. But again, many communities are already instilling these types of ordinances already. So I would be in support of something that limits smoking on city properties.
Okay, Mr. Schmitz.
I guess, like Andrea said, I guess I would support it also. I quit smoking 25 years ago, and I'm glad I did. And if I could get everybody to quit smoking, it'd be a blessing. I think it's the best thing health-wise, and so I would definitely support it.
Mr. Mack.
I would definitely support the ordinance also, and I think it just keeps our community clean. It sets a good precedence. New Ulm is known for Harder New Ulm, and set a good example for the next generations coming into the community.
Okay, once again, let me remind you, the audience, that you may submit questions to the League of Women Voters by email to lwvnewulm@lwvmn.org or phone at 507-276-6140 and 507-766-951. Okay, we're on to question 7. Mr. Mack, you're up first, then Ms. Betker and Mr. Schmitz. Now, the question is, with the current decline of pollinators and their link to our health, would you support New Ulm becoming a pollinator-free city by reducing pesticide use and leaving more unmowed natural areas of the city properties?
I definitely would support that. I think we just need to find good, clever areas where we want to put these strategically within our community, and then hopefully we have community members that are interested in this that are going to help maintain it. I don't think it's going to be the city. I think we as a city, we could support it, give them the economic tools or the land, maybe some resources and help with some parts of it. But I think if there's enough interest in it in our community and we can get a group of volunteers to take care of it, certainly.
Okay, Ms. Betker.
Yes, I would also be in support. We all have heard the research on bees and other animals and the importance that they play in our environment, from everything from making our food to cleaning supplies and different things. I know that they were looking at doing something with the Herman Heights project and putting some type of a pollinator park up there. But again, it also comes down to the resources that we have in the city and the people that are willing to come forward and help with a project like that. I think they're great, and our city does have plenty of space that we could use for different things like that. And if the right ideas get brought for the right spaces, I would be in support of a pollinator park.
Mr. Schmitz.
I guess, yes, I would support it also. We do have presently do have a pollinator park in New Ulm, which is located on North Broadway out at about 23rd Street, something like that. And occasionally you see people out there, they have a bench out there and things like that to sit down. And I personally never walked through it, but I drive by it several times and take a look at it. And yes, I think it'd be good for the community.
Thank you. Temporarily, we've run out of questions.
Oh, my God.
But
You ask each other questions?
if there's anything you'd like to say to the public while we're waiting more questions.
I guess I'll make one comment, and that's to back a comment Andrea had made prior to running or whatever. But anyway, one of the comments that was made is about daycare. daycare is a big thing. We've been working with daycare to Region 9 with economic development down there for the past probably 8 years. We've worked with it here at EDA in New Ulm. And we presently have one daycare that's been in the making, and we have actually loaned money to them. And it's been, like I say, in the making for a couple of years. It never gets off the ground. So daycare is something that has been on the table for years. The biggest problem we have with daycare is we can't get anything going because of all the different state regulations. And the other thing is the pay isn't that great for the people that work there, so they can't get the help. So, it's a catch-22. If you're going to want daycare, you're going to have to pay for it. And I've got grandchildren that go to daycare and stuff, and it is not cheap. And I don't know the answer to it, but we have been trying to do everything we possibly can to get more daycare into this community. And as this coronavirus hit us, I think it's actually going the other way because nobody really wants it. And nobody's taking on additional kids. So if we don't get our children back in school, I don't know what a lot of these single parents are going to do out there. A lot of them don't have grandparents like myself that are willing to take care of these children and stuff like that. And some of the things that they're coming up with for ideas, I don't think is that great either, because you can't have one kid go to school in the morning, one go in the afternoon, and another one the next day, and so on and so forth. But this is going to create a bigger daycare problem. So we're behind the 8 ball there. I don't know what we're going to do. But just a comment. If anybody's
Mr.
got an
Mack,
answer, I'd like to hear it.
Mr. Mack, would you like to comment on that?
Sure. I've been on council for going on 6 years, and it's come up every year as a daycare and I think we may have to take the bull by the horns as the EDA for the future, and maybe look for our community center and say that we work with an entrepreneur that may want to run a daycare facility, and we use it as an incubator and give them an opportunity to use the space and start a daycare business to see if that's the business that he or she would like to start, or a couple individuals. And we subsidize it by, we have some city buildings, and try that. And then if that's successful for them, let's try to work as a loan or a grant opportunity to try to find them a building or a location within our community.
Ms. Betker.
Sure, certainly. Daycare's been an issue that's been on the minds of many for a long time. I am in the age range where I have friends that are having children in town that are calling daycares, hundreds of people on the list the minute that they become pregnant, and they don't have any luck. And that's got to be very stressful for somebody that's going to be a new parent. We do have some incredible daycare centers in here, and I understand there have been some challenges with the one that is trying to get up and running right now. Several of the ones that we have, one of the options would be to maybe look at being able to expand them in some way so that they can serve more children. They already have a base of staff, so they're not starting from scratch. Initiatives on better pay for people. These are people that are taking care of our children, that are teaching our infants, that are, being there for some of the first moments that they have. And we understand that it can be very expensive to care for kids, but that's an 8 ball that we're behind as a country. We just need to get on board with being able to pay these people that care for our kids, more of a living wage. Attracting, so maybe looking at some of the other centers up in the cities or throughout the state that would be willing to open a secondary location down here, potentially looking at churches or doing what some other communities do that have daycares within their businesses. And I know that just starts to, a whole new web of things, but I read a very, very long and very informative article about daycare that was done in 2016 or 2017 that covered Minnesota, both both inside and outside of the state areas. And while the cities don't seem to be struggling, our neighboring kind of southern and western areas do struggle a lot with daycare.
Thank you. We now have Question 8, and question 8, Mr. Schmitz, you'll start, then Mr. Mack and Ms. Betker. Question 8 is, how would you support diversity in New Ulm, such as growing the community and bringing in new companies and businesses?
We have several incentives. I know at the city, I can't tell you, I don't really know exactly what they are, but I know at the public utilities, they do discounts on utilities and things like that. But we would be willing to support the industry, however, whatever. We have done it with, I think it's DLC, or I might have the name wrong, up on top of the hill. We purchased the land, sold it to them for $1. We've done different things like that. We've donated 32 acres to the National Guard Armory. So there's many ways that we can help a business get started, but the thing is that they have to come in and be willing to sit down and talk to us, and we'll definitely listen.
Okay, Mr. Mack?
As far as bringing businesses within our community, I feel, we've got about at least 50 acres of land for opportunity, and we've sold land for $1 and in hopes that they're going to build a business and a building there and employ people and maintain that for so many years and work with DEED, Department of Economic and Development, in different loan opportunities. We've got a vacant building here currently within the city that we're in negotiations with, and it's a special use building because it's zoned agriculture or surrounded around industrial, and we're looking at doing a loan opportunity and to sell them the building and get their business expanded and try to ask them to retain employees for X amount of years. And like Charlie stated, we went out on a limb and purchased land for the National Guard, looking at the future that we want them here for the next 100 years within our community. I think they'll make a good anchor within our community.
Ms. Betker?
Yes. I'm happy to see that we have been seeing new different types of companies emerge, and based on some of the surveys that were done recently, these are the types of businesses that our local residents want to see. Baby clothing shops and an ice cream shop. I mean, you are starting to see some of those smaller places downtown. A big thing is to educate and send information to people that would be, and companies that would be interested in coming to New Ulm and just filling some of those needs that we have as a community. Leveraging the Small Business Development Corporation and the Chamber. And most importantly, just really getting those economic development groups to work together. I mean, as someone that has been in sales, I understand that it takes a lot of no's before you get to a yes. I mean, economic development needs to be a full-time initiative. We need to have a plan of, what types of businesses do we want to attract, and, what needs does our community have. And it's going to take a lot of no's before you get to some of those yeses, but as long as we get things moving and keep chipping away, we do have the opportunity to make some changes and make sure that we do have a diverse business community in New Ulm.
Thank you. Okay. We have one more question here. And we'll start with Ms. Betker. Comment on renew projects and the maintenance of the current and new projects.
Thank you. My comment on the Renew projects is really, part of what compelled me to run for city councilor a couple of years ago was the lack of action that I saw being taken on the Renew projects. Just like everything in this world, the longer you wait, the more expensive things get. And over the past couple of years, we've been blessed with a very good economy. But as you know, when that type of thing happens, prices of commodities go up. And what do we do when we need to build things? We need to use commodities and services. And as somebody that is indirectly involved with one of the Renew projects, it was difficult to see things just continuing to be stalled. And I feel like the wheels are moving now, but that we as a community missed out on some of the really incredible things that we could have if these would have been done on time. They were approved at the state level and kind of went through the processes that they needed to go through to get things started. And I'm not really sure, what happened, but if I were on the council and in charge, I would have made it a major priority to keep those moving along so that we got the most bang for our buck.
Mr. Mack?
I was involved with the Renew from day one in 2014 when I got on the council. And we started with 24 projects and had to narrow it down to 7. And you heard what everybody wanted, whether it's a want or a need. But then we also had to look at the economics of trying to not add more city staff and overhead for the future for maintenance costs for these projects. And I feel we did a heck of a job trying to do it. I think, where Andrea was stating where it got stalled a little bit is, when I went to the first meeting when we were going to do the rec center, we were hovering about $23 million. And we were trying to get it down to about $12 million. And at that point in time, we as a council needed to either nip it in the butt and cut or find a solution to try to fund it. And it took a lot of meetings and discussions of how we're going to fund it and try to move forward for the future and try to be sustainable with these projects. And as far as the maintenance, New Ulm was unique that we put in a reserve account, anything above and beyond the debt service ratio, to help cover the remodeling and maintain our old projects that were done for the first 20 years. So I feel we've done a pretty good job with it, and we gave the community all but one of their projects, and that was the Dome project that we eliminated early on. So,
Mr. Smith?
I guess I agree with everything Larry has said. What you got to realize is the wheels in government move slow. They move slow for many reasons. One is to make sure that whatever we do is done right, because if we don't, we're going to know about it. The other thing is this was an extension of our, at the time, Renew project, which was a 20-year deal. And when we started that in 2014, there was still 4 or 5 years left or better on that Renew project that didn't run out. So to start it right away with an extension, there's no way that financially that we could have supported it. So we started early, we thought, worked forward, and got it, I would say, going at about the time we thought we would. And actually, I think we came out real good on it, because what ended up happening is with the coronavirus and everything hitting, we went out and we got some of the most bids that you could ever get on a project, which actually, I believe, saved us lots and lots of money. So yeah, it can go and bite you in the butt if you go out at the wrong time or you drag your feet, because everything does go up. But I think we were fortunate for the way we went about it. So, but no, I think the Renew projects are great. I think they're going to be a big benefit for the city and for all of our residents and everything else. We got some nice things that are going to be completed, and that's one reason I'm, be honest, running for city council again, is I'd like to see these projects finished, because I was on it from the start. I wasn't on the committees like Larry was, but we were there. So, thank you.
Now we are ready for the closing statements. And Mr. Mack, then Ms. Betker, and Mr. Schmitz. Now, there is another question that came in which you might want to incorporate into your closing statement. The question is, how has your experience in the city commissions helped make you an effective council president? So for closing remarks, I think you have 2 minutes, and we'll start with Mr. Mack. Huh?
1 minute.
1? Oh. They're the timekeepers.
all right. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters of New Ulm, Minnesota for hosting tonight's debate. I'd also like to thank Ward 4 for your ongoing support and those who encouraged me to run for Councilor at Large. A Councilor at Large needs to listen, learn, and lead. They need to be solution-minded, approachable, and open to new ideas and discussion. They need to be willing to say no in the community or the numbers call for it. I have the experience necessary to be all those things for New Ulm and welcome the opportunity to be your next Councilor at Large. Thank you for your vote August 11th.
Ms. Betker.
Thank you. I would like to again thank the League for putting on the debate and providing residents the opportunity to hear from candidates. I'm running for councilor at large with a vast understanding of the issues important to the citizens and business owners of New Ulm. For the past 2 years, I've been preparing for this race by talking with business owners, following the actions and requests put before the council, and gathering a working knowledge of the challenges and opportunities our community is experiencing and will be expected to experience in the next 5 to 10 years. While it's important to address issues as they come to the council, it's also important and more productive to anticipate and plan for our city's future. As your counselor, I will act with integrity. I will work with other counselors and individuals in times of conflict, and I will vote based on data and available information. I will work with other community leaders to understand what is working within their communities and guide our community in progress. I am asking for your vote in the primary race on Tuesday, August 11th. This important race will determine which 2 candidates will be on the ballot in November. I look forward to serving as your next counselor at large, and I thank you for your support.
Mr. Schmitz.
Well, I've served as the city council president for the past 12 years. I've enjoyed all those years. I've served on several different committees, so actually I've learned a lot. Actually, to be honest, when I ran for city council way back in 2008, I really didn't realize how many meetings I was going to be attending. I thought there was like a couple council meetings and this or that. Now I'm on the board of directors for Region 9. I'm serving on the EDA with Region 9, and I'm chairman of the EDA here in New Ulm. Serve on the Fire Department Relief Association, the Brown County Law Enforcement Center, and you believe it or not, there's a lot of meetings, more than just 2. So it's been very educational. I've enjoyed it, and like everybody else says, I look forward to the vote. And what you had for the past 12 years is no doubt what you're going to see for the next 4 if you vote for me. So thank you very much.
This concludes our City Council candidate forum. Thank you to the candidates for participating and sharing your views. We will take a short break, and then we'll be back for the forum on the Minnesota House Republican primary candidates.